Here's your storytelling video script in a reusable writing block format. Writing. I'd never date a single father, the billionaire said, until he walked away without a word. Have you ever judged someone in a single moment, only to discover later that you were completely wrong? Sometimes life has a strange way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them. A lesson about love. A lesson about humility. And most importantly, a lesson about kindness. Today's story is about a billionaire who thought she had everything figured out until one quiet man changed her heart without even trying. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Corner of Kind Choices, like this video, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories about kindness, hope, and second chances. Now, let's begin. Madison Hart was one of the most successful women in America. At only 38 years old, she had built a technology empire worth billions. Her face appeared on magazine covers. News reporters followed her every move. She owned luxury homes in 3 states, flew on private jets, and could buy almost anything she wanted. But despite all her success, Madison was alone. She had dated wealthy businessmen, celebrities, and powerful executives. Yet none of those relationships lasted. She often told her friends that most people wanted her money, her influence, or her status. One evening, Madison attended a charity fundraising event in Chicago. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and expensive decorations. Wealthy guests filled the room, dressed in designer clothes. As Madison spoke with investors and politicians, her friend Rebecca pointed toward a man standing near the refreshment table. "He's been helping all evening," Rebecca said. "He volunteered to organize the event." Madison glanced over. The man looked ordinary. He wore a simple suit and wasn't trying to attract attention. Beside him stood a young girl, perhaps 8 years old, smiling brightly as she handed out donation brochures. "Who's he?" Madison asked. "His name is Ethan Brooks. He's a school counselor." Madison nodded politely before returning her attention elsewhere. Later that evening, Rebecca introduced them. "Madison, this is Ethan." Ethan smiled warmly. "It's nice to meet you." His handshake was firm but gentle. Before Madison could respond, the little girl beside him stepped forward. "I'm Lily," she said proudly. Ethan laughed softly. "My daughter likes introducing herself." Madison forced a smile. Then, without thinking, she said something she would later regret. "Oh, you're a single father." "Yes," Ethan replied. Madison shrugged. "Well, I could never date a single father." The word slipped out casually. To Madison, it was simply an opinion. To Ethan, it felt like a judgment. For a moment, silence settled between them. Rebecca looked uncomfortable. Lily's smile faded slightly. But Ethan remained calm. He simply nodded. "I understand." Then he excused himself and walked away with his daughter. No argument. No anger. No attempt to defend himself. Just quiet dignity. Madison barely thought about the encounter afterward. She returned to her busy life and forgot about Ethan Brooks. At least she thought she did. A few weeks later, Madison visited a community center that her company had recently funded. As she toured the building, she noticed someone helping children with homework in a classroom. It was Ethan. The children surrounded him, laughing and asking questions. Every child seemed comfortable around him. One boy struggled with reading, and Ethan patiently encouraged him word by word. Another child appeared upset about something at home. Ethan listened carefully and offered support. Madison stood in the doorway, watching. There was something different about him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't seeking recognition. He simply cared. Before leaving, Madison approached him. "You're doing great work here." Ethan smiled politely. Thank you. His response was respectful but distant. Madison suddenly remembered her comment at the fundraiser. For the first time, she felt embarrassed. Over the next several months, their paths crossed repeatedly through various charity projects. Each time, Madison learned something new about Ethan. His wife had passed away from cancer 5 years earlier. Since then, he had raised Lily alone. He worked long hours helping struggling students. He volunteered on weekends. And somehow, despite carrying enormous responsibilities, he remained kind to everyone he met. Meanwhile, Madison noticed something uncomfortable about herself. Many people around her were friendly because of her wealth. Ethan was different. He treated her exactly the same as everyone else. Not better. Not worse. Just the same. And strangely, she liked that. One Saturday morning, Madison arrived at a food distribution event. Heavy rain had begun falling. Volunteers rushed to set up tents and move supplies. Without hesitation, Ethan worked alongside everyone else. He carried boxes through puddles. He comforted elderly visitors waiting in line. He gave his raincoat to a shivering teenager. By the end of the day, he was soaked. Yet he never complained. Madison couldn't stop watching him. For years, she had measured people by success, influence, and achievement. But Ethan possessed something she rarely encountered: character. A few days later, Madison invited him to coffee. To her surprise, he accepted. They sat in a small neighborhood cafe. Nothing fancy. Nothing exclusive. Just two people talking. For hours, they discussed life, family, dreams, and challenges. Madison found herself laughing more than she had in years. Ethan spoke openly about raising Lily. He admitted that parenting alone was difficult. But he also said it was the greatest blessing of his life. As he talked about his daughter, his eyes filled with pride. Madison listened carefully. Something inside her was changing. Weeks turned into months. Their friendship grew stronger. Madison spent time with Ethan and Lily. She joined them at community events. She attended Lily's school play. For the first time in years, Madison experienced simple moments of happiness that money couldn't buy. One evening, while walking through a city park, Madison finally spoke honestly. "Ethan, I owe you an apology." He looked at her curiously. "For what?" "For what I said when we first met." Ethan remained silent. Madison continued. "I judged you before I knew anything about you. I saw the words single father and assumed things that weren't true." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. "I was arrogant," Madison admitted. "And I was wrong." Ethan looked toward the sunset for a moment. Then he smiled. "Thank you." That was all. No lecture. No resentment. Just forgiveness. The kindness in that moment touched Madison deeply. Many people would have held on to anger. Ethan chose grace instead. Several months later, Madison invited Ethan and Lily to dinner at her home. After the meal, Lily wandered into the garden. Madison and Ethan sat quietly on the patio. The evening sky glowed with stars. "Ethan," Madison said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why didn't you argue with me that first night?" Ethan smiled. "Because people reveal themselves through their actions more than their opinions." Madison listened. "You didn't know me then," he continued. "I figured life would eventually show you who I really was." His answer stayed with her. Life would eventually show you. And it had. Not through words. Not through status. Not through wealth. Through kindness. Through patience. Through character. Over time, their friendship became something deeper. Something stronger. Madison discovered that love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about seeing someone's heart. and Ethan's heart was extraordinary. A year after they first met, Madison stood on a stage accepting a humanitarian award. Hundreds of people filled the room. When asked what had inspired her increased commitment to community service, she surprised everyone with her answer. "A man taught me that kindness matters more than success," she said. Her eyes found Ethan in the audience. "He taught me that character matters more than status. And he taught me that the people we overlook are often the people we need most." The audience applauded. But Ethan simply smiled. The same humble smile he had worn since the beginning. The smile of someone who never needed recognition to do the right thing. Years later, Madison often reflected on that first conversation at the fundraiser. The moment she had said she would never date a single father. The moment she judged someone she didn't understand. And the moment a kind man walked away without a word. That silent choice changed everything. Because sometimes the most powerful response isn't an argument. It's dignity. It's patience. It's kindness. And sometimes kindness has the power to transform not only the person receiving it but also the person witnessing it. So if there's one lesson from today's story, it's this. Never assume you know someone's worth based on a label, a title, or a circumstance. Every person carries a story you cannot see. Every person deserves respect. And every act of kindness creates a ripple that may change a life forever. Thank you for spending this time with us on Corner of Kind Choices. If this story touched your heart, remember to spread kindness wherever you go. A small act of compassion today could become the turning point in someone else's life tomorrow. And sometimes, it might even change your own.